Okay. Now it should be recording. So thank you, Felisa, for reminding me. I meant to do that. All right, so then we'll start on here on the next slide. So what is social media? So according to Oxford, I kind of have to do it because the way the screen's here kind of cuts off a little bit of my slide, so I have to use it off the PowerPoint here on another computer. So bear with me. So according to Oxford, social media is defined as a website and application that enables users to create and share content or to participate in social networking. This is just released by Hootsuite.com. Social media helped prepare for COVID's impact on business disruption. 69% agree that social media has played a major factor in how we respond as a community to COVID-19. So significant contribution and change for that. So that's one reason why social media has really kind of grown over these last several months. So what kind of social media applications and websites are there? So you got Facebook, YouTube, Pinterest, Snapchat, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, and then you got some other ones. You got Reddit, Brainly, Canoodle, One Way. I mean, it's a very, very clouded, or not clouded, heavy field. There's a lot of things going on in terms of social media and a lot of applications that address people's different needs and desires when they're online. And that's only a fraction of them. By my count, there's more than 500 social media applications that people can have access to. So finding the one that's right for you is definitely important. So here are some recent industry headlines. LinkedIn is up to 722 million members and continues to see record levels of engagement. And I'll get into what the different social media applications that are out there that best fit business and marketing tools. Pinterest has added 26 million users in the third quarter. And Facebook continues to add users and post strong revenue. And the same goes with Twitter. And Instagram is also expanding their options as well. Here are some predictions from social media experts on what you might expect in 2021. Remixing brand content with users is on the rise. Essentially, businesses are being forced to rebrand itself because of COVID-19, but also a lot of different things that have gone on in our world, specifically social and racial injustice. The Black Lives Matter movement has really forced companies to maybe rethink and how they structure themselves business, like in how they communicate with their customers or supporters. COVID-19 content will focus on the 4 C's, which is community, cleanliness, contactless, and compassion. 78% of consumers want brands to help them in their daily lives. Messaging will become more mematic. 55% of users 13 to 35 years old will send memes every week. So memes are definitely on the rise, and I'm sure if you've seen that there's definitely more and more of those being shared on social media. Nostalgia marketing will engage your audience, and it grew 88% during the lockdown. And nostalgia marketing is defined as a method which brands can invoke positive emotions from their audience, put their products in the spotlight, and generate more revenue and visibility. So doing things like Throwback Thursday, Flashback Friday, Remember When are certainly things that capture people's attention to make them think about things that may have happened from the past. I can't see hold on here. I can't see my cursor. There we go. Somebody else is just jumping in, so pardon that. So continued. Conversational marketing will drive sales. Connecting with your audience is going to be very key, whether that's in person or through digital. And obviously, with less in-person gatherings, doing so digitally has been emphasized a heck of a lot more over these last 7, 8, 9 months because of COVID. These are just some other things here too. The line between social media and gaming will blur. Old school marketing will be the new, as now 55% of Americans now listen to podcasts. The social media giants, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, are going to adapt to these changes, and I'm going to discuss some of these changes that some of these platforms have already made over the last several months, and even Twitter rolling out a brand new feature just this week. So I'll touch on that a little later as well. Digital disinformation will be tackled, such as fake news, and we kind of heard kind of what Facebook and Twitter were publicizing and communicating about how they were handling content that was going on during the election. And now audiences will also be more socially conscious of what's going on around them, such as social and racial injustice and other issues, police brutality. It is going to be you're going to have to be very careful when you're dealing with, if you come up with situations like these, and in how you communicate to your customers when those kind of situations arise. And so we'll tackle that as we go on. So, all right, move on to the next one. So in 2019, a marketing agency called Buffer asked marketing professionals a couple different questions about their level of social media and what they use it for, and how effective it is. So the first graph here indicates how important was it to their agency or company that social media was a part of their overall marketing strategy. So as you see, well over 88% believe it has some kind of importance, while others are less than 10%. My math's a little off. So about 12% are uncertain or don't think it is. So 88% feel it's at least have some kind of value to their digital and overall marketing strategies. The next question is, how effective has their social media been in their marketing campaigns? And as you can see, more than 70% feel that is somewhat effective, either somewhat effective at 43% or very effective at 29%. So nearly three-fourths of people surveyed in this poll, which they did not say how many people were, feel that social media does have some effectiveness to their social and digital media marketing specialties. Okay. Sorry, I got to exit out here. If you'll let me. Okay. Okay. All right. And then the next slide here is asking, does anybody have a documented social media strategy? And as you notice, it's a slight majority say no. So you have agencies and companies that believe that social media is an important part and an effective part, but not as many have an outlined strategy. And this is very important to understand what you're trying to accomplish through social media and digital media marketing. So that was definitely an interesting feedback that there's not that many people that have that strategy. And I will go over how to do something like that a little bit later on. So what can social media do for you, your brand or your business? Well, it definitely increases your brand exposure because people are on social media and on the internet, period, because we're now a little more isolated than we've been in the past. Connects our brand to users, customers, and potential employees. There's a lot of different ways that you could connect to potential, like you said, to different customers, and users, and potential employees. And there's certain platforms that can let you connect to those people based on the platform that they're using. It gives you a chance to almost in a way kind of brag about yourself. You showcase yourself and your brand as an industry leader in what you do. It validates content topics, and it also serves as a validation or verification to consumers. Often I have found that people will actually visit the business's social media, their Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, before they actually go to the website of that agency. I mean, they've kind of used that more as a way to verify that you are indeed a business. And also it's a little easier direct link to what you do to your website. So that's, I found is to be very interesting that people are using social media to do their research rather than going to the websites first. Here's what social media doesn't do for your brand. It cannot stand as the lone marketing strategy. It is a portion of your overall marketing strategy. It is also not the magic potion that will fix it all. It's definitely a good tool to have, but it's not going to fix everything. And it's a direct lead generation and or sales tool. How are we doing so far? Is the pace okay, or do we have any questions? Okay. Like I said, if you have questions, just jump in or send a note on chat if you have any questions, and we'll try to answer them. Otherwise, like I said, we'll have some time at the end for other questions and stuff. So, all right. So, what is a social media strategy? Well, first, you got to define your goals. You're going to hear this a lot from me over this next hours. You got to define your goals. Otherwise, if you don't know what your goal is, you're just wasting time. Moving right along, the next part is you develop a plan. What do you want to accomplish based off of the goals that you have? And I can go over a list of examples of goals. Next part is post, like, and share. It is social media, so you need to interact, post. People make a comment on your page. Presumably it's a positive comment. Tell them thank you. If you have an event or something that you want people to engage with, you want to be engaging, which leads to part. Engage with your users. Like I mentioned, social media is a connection tool. You connect to users, potential customers, and potential employees. You know, if you're not engaging, you're going to lose them really quick. So it's really important to engage with users. The general rule is if people send a message to you, getting another admission here. Okay. If somebody sends you a message on Facebook Messenger to your business page, the typical response time that's asked and required by customers is 24 hours. That's how quickly they want a response. So you kind of have to move kind of quickly. And then do your research. Okay? You're posting, you're doing content, you're getting some content out there. You got to do some research and figure out how are people reacting to what you're posting. And then you analyze and measure it. And I've got ways where you can be able to figure that part out as well. And once you've done that, you just reevaluate and define your goals. Okay, did you meet the goals that you had set for yourself? Okay, if you did, great. If not, then let's tinker that and come up with a new set of goals that you can work with and try to repeat the process again. Okay. All right, so I'm going to show you this is what if any of you run your own Facebook page that is a business page, this is kind of what you'll look like when you open your screen. And obviously I'm using the one I use for work, so that's Milwaukee Center for Independence. And in the black arrow in the bottom left corner, there's a spot that's called Insights. And Insights is going to give you a lot of information that you need to know, and that will help you understand what your people, how your posts are performing, and what kind of audience that you need to have following your page. So on the Insights page, this is one section of it. So as you can see on the bottom is Milwaukee Center for Independence. And these are other pages that you can follow that you could consider yourself to be your competitors. What are your competitors up to? And it's perfectly fine for you to spy on your competitors because they're probably doing it to you. So that is perfectly encouraged. And what you can see is the organization, and you can click on the links, not on this PDF, but in Insights, you can click on that page and it'll take you to their page and you can see exactly what they're doing. It shows you their page likes, how much that isn't changed from the previous week. So as you see, Independence First is down 0.1%. It shows you the number of posts that they have and the total number of engagements they have through those posts. Engagements is going to be key. To me, it's the most important value that you measure in social media. And I'll get into that in a little bit. Here's another section of Insights. This is actually all on one page. I just broke them out into different sections just to magnify them a little easier. But this is all on the same page, and there's different, and as you can see on the left-hand side on the page Insights, there are different numbers or tabs that you can click on. So there's overview, followers, likes. You can track what your followers count is like. Is it changing up and down? Reach is basically how many people are you reaching, page views, page previews, actions on page. You can learn all sorts of different information based off of these insights. And what I'm showing you is just the kind of the page summary. And what you'll see is actions on page, which would be like a comment or a share or a like of some sort. Page views, in this case from October 27th to November 2nd, was 437, which was an increase of 31% from the previous week. Other things that you can see down below is responsiveness. It shows how well you're doing in terms of responding to messages that are left for you. So it's another good tool to really kind of gauge how you're performing as a page. And post reach right there in the center is another one. And this is one I use a lot. It's under posts. As you can see it highlighted on the left-hand side. What you see at the top is data shown for a recent 1 week period. What the days in the graphs show is you can take your cursor and scroll over the flow chart that's in the center, and you can see when people are on your website, on your Facebook page at a particular time. So it measures. So as you can see, in the case from Milwaukee Center for Independence, it's kind of hard for me to see on my screen here, that we get the most traffic on average for the course of a week is about 6 o'clock at night. This really can help you determine when it would be the best time to post based on when your followers are typically online. So if there's some information that you want to get to people and you want to get to a lot of people, you can use this information to gauge when is the best time to put it in front of them. And kind of think about it. What's going on what are people doing typically at 6 o'clock? They're probably usually getting home from work. They're winding down from the day. They're maybe having dinner. And how many of us scroll through our social media either at dinner or when we're sitting on the couch watching TV after dinner? Typically what I've seen is as the day progresses, more and more people get on social media because as many of you probably know, social media has really become a hot source for people and how they get their news. So that's how they kind of get caught up for the day. So then the bottom half of the graph shows you each and every post that you make, and it shows what your post looks like. Then your reach, which is the number of users that you reach. And then it shows engagements. The first one, it says it's in blue. That means post clicks. That usually is like if there's a link that you put with your post or a photo or a video. If anybody clicks on those, that will be registered as an engagement on your posts in social media. And then the other spot is reactions, comments, and shares. So essentially, if it's a comment, a like, a share, that will be logged there. So you can see that the second one down, it says check out the creativity on full display, reached about 180 people. Had an engagement of 9, so that means 9 post clicks. So what that post had was a bunch of pictures from an art contest that was held. So people clicked on the pictures to see what artwork was done. It was artwork of people decorated pumpkins. And then there were 4 clicks for reactions, comments, and shares. So either someone reacted to it with a like, a love, or a share, or they commented on it. So that's a lot of very valuable information about what your post is doing, how it's performing, what people thought of it, and also when is the good time to post based on your users. And you can scroll along the bar graphs along the top, and it'll show you a line graph inside the overall graph in the center of the page. So very useful tool to basically understand what people think of what you're posting. Excuse me. All right, so the Manifest in 2018 did a study about what social media channels users use at least once per week. And as you can see, Facebook is the number one. Has been for a long time, but as you'll see here too, that is changing. Facebook is still popular, but not where it was 5-6 years ago. And I'll get into that later. YouTube has definitely been rising. A lot more people are watching videos and interacting with videos over the last several years, which is why also Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, is also growing. Snapchat, and there's Pinterest and Twitter. Twitter is kind of an interesting tool because I've seen great usage on Twitter based on what I do, but there's other agencies based on maybe what they do that are not seeing it as well. And I'll kind of get into why Twitter is kind of that, I can't think of the word here, but I mean, it's still a valuable tool, but it's a challenge. It's probably the most challenging social media platform there is. And I'll get into that a little later on. 1 year later, Pew Research did a similar study about users and their use on social media. As you see, YouTube had surpassed Facebook, and Facebook dropped nearly 14% from the previous year based on the two different studies. Instagram still held up, but Pinterest was also growing a little bit. So just kind of give you an idea how much it fluctuates between platforms and users' usage from year to year. Here's some more information about social media from that Pew Research study. Instagram and Snapchat extremely popular with 18 to 24-year-olds, basically your college students. 75% use Instagram and 73% use Snapchat. Snapchat is kind of almost taken the place of text messaging. Instead, now it's more of visual content through text messaging is what Snapchat often does, is you can share photos and share video, and that's kind of what Snapchat does. Also among 18 to 24-year-olds, which is again you're basically your college students, is Twitter usage is about 44%, YouTube is 90%, and Facebook is 76%. Move into the 25 to 29-year-olds, kind of your millennials. Snapchat and Instagram have heavy usage. Women are 3 times more likely to use Pinterest than men, 42 to 15%. And when it comes to LinkedIn, around half of college graduates and those who live in high-income houses use LinkedIn, compared to 10% or fewer of those who have not at least attended some kind of higher education. One more here from Pew Research. 74% of users say they use Facebook every day. 51% of those say they use it several times a day. 63% say they use Instagram daily. 42% say they use it several times a day. And 61% say they use Snapchat daily. So as you can see, you get a lot of repeat users that they'll go onto a platform more than once throughout the course of a day. As you see, 77% of users 18 to 29, so again, college students and millennials use Snapchat, and 68% of those use it more than once per day. Then 76% of users in that same age use Instagram. And then 51% of users on YouTube say they visit the site daily, and that is an increase from 45% in 2018. So I'm going to give you another phrase to learn, and that's called social listening. It helps determine where your audience is and what they like. And knowing where your audience is and what they like will help you develop content. So when you go back to the insights that we showed a couple slides ago, social listening is understanding what people are doing with your posts. Are they reacting to it? Okay, you reached 300 people with your Facebook post, but did it get any kind of engagement? No, if it didn't, then the post maybe not been as effective as you thought. So that's an example of social listening. So maybe a post that you thought was okay, but didn't really resonate with people can help you understand, okay, maybe that was not what they're looking for. And that kind of fits into the next bullet point, which is reviewing your data from your social media plan. That helps you understand and help you formulate, if you go through the circle of your strategy, and if the social media strategy didn't work the way you thought, using those insights can help you better formulate the second part of your plan, or revise the plan that you have from before. And like I said, it's okay to spy on your competitors. I do it, and I know they do it to me as well. Remember, defining your goals. That is the golden rule. Define your goals. If without them, you are wasting your time, because if you don't know what you are trying to accomplish, you're not going to be able to create a successful social media marketing strategy. So how do you do that? Here are some examples of what you may want to accomplish on your social media strategies. One, drive website traffic. Like I mentioned, a lot of people go to social media channels like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram to find out more about you and kind of what content that you share. Boost brands awareness and increase event registration or increase website leads. Remember, define your goals. What do you want to achieve? Excuse me, I gotta take a little swig of water here. All right, so what's out there and what are their usage? So I picked up probably the 4 main ones that probably all of us or most of us are familiar with and what they kind of are designed to do. Facebook is kind of a spreads awareness of your organization. It's one of the best ways to reach your consumers. As you saw, a lot of people use Facebook. One of the fastest growing demographics, believe it or not, are baby boomers. As the baby boomers tend to get older, more of them are also accepting to digital and social media. Twitter is kind of positions your business employees as thought leaders. LinkedIn is good for company news to community, and I'll touch on this too, but LinkedIn is a very good source if you're doing business to business or B2B communication. And Instagram is one that establishes your brand and company with visuals. You cannot post just text on Instagram. You have to do a video or a photo. Okay. Here's the nuts and bolts of kind of what several platforms do. Facebook helps tell your story, draws attention to all aspects of your business and organization. Twitter is probably one of the most engaging social media platforms. It allows for interaction, relationship building, and development to engage and create conversation. Instagram showcases your initiative through visuals. Again, LinkedIn connects to business professionals. Usually, a lot of people who go on LinkedIn are looking for industry news, or you get college educated or people with college degrees or bachelor's degrees and masters. Those are the people that tend to be on LinkedIn, and they'll do job searches on LinkedIn. So if you have like a job within your agency that requires someone to have at least a bachelor's degree, LinkedIn is a pretty good spot to post a job ad like that, because that's actually where most college educated people will prefer to go to find jobs, because that's a very more specific audience. Whereas if you go to like Indeed or Monster.com or other sites on there, that's just a bigger pool that you're working with. LinkedIn is much narrower, and you have a pretty good chance of getting a really high quality candidate through LinkedIn. Pinterest kind of works like an online store. It also works as there's a lot of people post motivational messages. A lot of people share recipes through Pinterest. So like you see there, idea sharing. Snapchat is back and forth communication using visuals, such as photos or videos. And TikTok is strictly video sharing. And TikTok is something we'll get into because it's certainly been in the headlines of late with President Trump. So we'll dive into that one here in a little bit. So, and I talked about what you need in your social media marketing strategy. These are just little bullet points that you can use. You obviously don't have to have all of them, but these are also very good points to consider when structuring your social media strategy. So what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish as a business? And what do you want to accomplish per platform? Each platform performs differently. They serve a different purpose. They have a different audience. It's very important to know that and what you're trying to accomplish. Make sure it mends with what that platform is doing. Obviously, know your target audience, key platforms. Tone and voice is very important because what you want to do with your tone and voice is you want to obviously have an upbeat personality on social media, because that's what people want. And you want a consistent voice and a consistent tone as well. A posting schedule is always very good and very handy. There are several tools on social media that let you post or schedule posts when you want to do so. So like if you stop work at 4 o'clock, but you really would like to get something out at 6 o'clock based on something that your insights tell you, you can schedule a post even though that you're not in the office. Understanding your social competitors, target hashtags. Hashtags I'll get into in a little later. Key influencers, style guide, and then update your schedule. So Manifest, they do a lot of really good research with social media and how people react to social media. They did a study and figured out what was the content that people most interacted with. And as you can see, nearly 70% of people interacted most when the post had an image. Next would be updates and announcements, which is essentially just a plain text like, hey, we have an event here, go to our website. When you don't put any kind of image or graphics or logo with it. Videos are next. Opinions is down there, but that one I guarantee you is going down, especially on Facebook. Quotes, and then events. So images on social media, believe it or not, there is a way, a good way to have them. And got the website there. Like I said, to those who joined late, I do have a PDF that will be made available after this presentation, and you can check out that site. Sprout Social is very good in the social media industry, and they have all sorts of parameters and discussions about how to best size your social media images, because if you do them too small, they'll look very pixelated and it looks very unprofessional. If it's too big, then it might slow down someone's computer, and that's also something that might turn off a user. When you do use images, consider copyrights. There are a number of free photo websites that you can use to put what's called static photos or stock photos that you can put with your posts. Unsplash, Pexels, or Canva are three good sources that I use that you can download photos for free. It's basically big photo libraries that's designed for people in marketing to use, just so they can put images with their posts. As you saw, images get more attention and more engagement. And then you want to limit some text for certain platforms. Often the shorter the text, the better. Twitter's maximum character count is 280. It used to be 140, but in Facebook, they have different, you can post however much you want, but attention spans for people are very, very short. So you really have to be careful in how you construct messaging in your social media platforms based on where you're posting them. I found the shorter the text, the better, because people just like to scroll. They don't want to sit there for a long time and read a novel about something you're doing as an organization. So carrying on. Social news feed algorithms. When social media really kind of boomed in the early 2000s, believe it or not, Facebook has only been around since 2004. It seems so much longer than that to me. I don't know what anybody else feels about that. Timelines and news feeds were organized by the post order of your friends that you followed. That is not the case anymore. Social media thrives on engagement, likes, shares, comments. Posts that have the more engagement will kick a algorithm red flag to Facebook that gives them the signals that, hey, this post is generating a lot of interest from a lot of people. We'll start pushing it further up people's timelines so they don't have to scroll very far to find this post. Facebook is the only one that does that. And they've been kind of getting criticized for that because they feel that as users are kind of feeling that's a privacy issue, and that's some things we'll go into as well. Other algorithm factors to consider that help with posts and where they sit is your stated interest, the stated interest of the user. Previously engaged content topics, their relationships with their own families and friends on Facebook, the time of the day the post was meant, and the big one, money that was spent. All right, so let's break into what each platform looks like. So 2.45 billion active monthly users use Facebook. The average shelf life for a post is 1 to 5 hours. And what that means is in that 1 to 5 hour window, that's your opportunity to capture people's attention, whether it's your followers or people that you're trying to reach. After that, that's when the posts kind of lose relevancy. And this is doing it organically. That changes if you decide to put money behind posts. And what the reason for that is Facebook and other social media outlets are trying to get you to spend some money to boost posts and make your posts more relevant, where they can make a little profit off of it at the same time. Users spend an average of about 35 minutes per day on Facebook. And then the average engagement is 0.09%, which is down from 0.16%. I've got a number, where I like to be is around 2% per posts. So engagement has been going down for Facebook, and it's partly because people are just not going to Facebook as often as they used to. Some strengths and weaknesses revolving around Facebook. All industries use it. Everybody has it. 2.45 billion users have it. And as I mentioned earlier, those 65 and older are the fastest growing demographic. They're kind of getting caught up on the digital trends. And it's got video and live video opportunities. Some weaknesses, like I mentioned, lack of organic engagement and reach. Facebook has really tried to pump up more posts that have money behind them. And not strangely, it's not that much to cost. The cost is not that bad if you try to boost a post. You can boost a post from anywhere to $10 to $50 or more. I mean, you would think that Facebook would really try to take advantage of it, but at least as far as how much it costs, it's actually a relatively low cost, which is a nice thing to have. If you have an event, for example, that you're trying to promote, and if you put like 25, 30 bucks behind it, Facebook will push that event higher up other people's timelines, and they will post it on people that aren't even following your page, but fit in the demographics and the areas that you're trying to reach with your posts. Because when you boost a post, you can set demographics, you can set geographical location to where you're trying to reach. So that's very handy information to have. And like I said, it's a pretty low cost. So which is why it's a really nice tool to have and something to may consider, especially if you have an event that you're trying to promote. Facebook has gotten a lot of criticism over the years, one for privacy concerns, which is driving users away. And as we know too, it's been heavily criticized for its influence in politics. Facebook got was very heavily challenged in courts after the 2016 election, based if there was beliefs and allegations that Facebook tailored their news feeds and posts to influence the election. And that really has turned a lot of people off. So what works well on Facebook? Tell your story. What are you about? What do you do? What are you good at? Do you have a success story that you'd like to share? Those are things people love to read, especially in times where you're just seeing more and more negative news. If you've got something positive that you're doing, if you make a donation to a nonprofit, or if you receive a donation from a nonprofit, from an agency to go to a nonprofit or whatever, the people love to see that kind of content. Be transparent and be honest. People can read right through if you're not being transparent and honest on social media. Connect on a personal level. Again, that falls into the engagement category. Give your Facebook page and your agency a personality, because that's what the people are trying to interact with. Test new features when they roll out, such as Facebook Stories. Just this week, it's kind of off a different platform. Twitter just released this week Fleets, and what that is now stories, 24-hour stories. If anybody's familiar with the stories on Instagram and Facebook, now Twitter has those. LinkedIn did that, rolled that out, I'd say a month or two ago. And when new features come out, like I said, test them out, because people want to see what they do. What are they about? How do they work? What can I use them? So that's when you'll get most of your engagement, is when new features roll out. So when a new feature rolls out, like Fleets on Twitter or the stories on LinkedIn, use them, because that's when they're going to be most engaged, and when they're going to use them the most is when they're brand new. Keep your About section up to date, because using your About section is also one way Google will scan your Facebook page to help with search engine results. And if anybody's, I think most of you are signed up for my Google Analytics presentation here in a couple weeks, and I will go over more of things like that in that presentation. But it's very important to keep your About section up to date, because Google does scan your social media sites, specifically Facebook, to help people find what they might be looking for on the internet. If you have one, use a contest to generate engagement. Definitely anything that can encourage engagement, you certainly want to do it. And don't hesitate to join groups associated with your pages. And this is especially true if you have job openings. Facebook is not traditionally, it's by itself a good job description place or place to search for jobs, but there are a lot of Facebook groups that are specific to finding jobs. Like I think there's, I do that a lot at Milwaukee Center for Independence. I think I'm connected to like 10 or 12 different Facebook groups that are specifically jobs related. Like there's a Facebook group called Jobs Around Milwaukee. There's Jobs in Washington County is a Facebook group. If you've got a job opening, that's just another area where you can recruit people to fill maybe some openings, because those are specific people looking for jobs. Whereas posting a job on your own Facebook page does not typically do as well as maybe posting on a specific audience page. All right, so here's LinkedIn. It has 310 million active monthly users. Its shelf life is for a post is a little longer than Facebook. As you see, it's 24 hours. And in many cases, it's more than that. I'm not sure if you've noticed how some posts on LinkedIn can appear 2-3 days old. Shelf lives are much better on LinkedIn because it's not as there's not as much traffic on LinkedIn as there is on Facebook and Twitter. Average minutes spent per day on LinkedIn is about 17 minutes, and the average engagement is about 0.05%. As I mentioned earlier, 80% of B2B social media leads come from LinkedIn. So if you do a lot of B2B connections and B2B conversations, LinkedIn is a terrific place to do that. If you're a nonprofit, maybe soliciting for donations, hopefully from like a company, doing that on LinkedIn is not a bad place to do that. All right, some strengths and weaknesses with LinkedIn. Like I mentioned, good for B2B. It's good to share industry news. So maybe if you have a news source that shares things that are specific to your industry, that's a good place to share them. Case studies, even if you do some of your own or if you like to share them, that kind of falls into the industry news area. Product spotlights is another thing you can use. Trade show contents. For example, if you do any conferences or go to trade shows, posting a picture that you're at the trade show on LinkedIn is definitely a good place to do that. And as I mentioned, job seekers and applicant screening. Basically, if you're not familiar with LinkedIn, LinkedIn is kind of everybody's profile is kind of like their online resume. So if you have a job post, you can scan candidates based on their LinkedIn profiles. Weaknesses, LinkedIn tends to be the slowest in terms of rolling out new features. In the strange case of the stories idea, LinkedIn got ahead of Twitter. But LinkedIn just launched stories within the last year, and that's been on Facebook and Instagram for a couple of years. So LinkedIn tends to have the least features, and they also tend to be slower in staying up on the industry trends. And they also have a more specific audience. Like we mentioned, tend to be more college educated and beyond. You're not usually going to entry-level jobs and people who don't have higher education are not on LinkedIn. And what works well on LinkedIn? Post about innovations, leadership by your company, organization, or someone within it related to your industry. Like if you have an example is if you have a new president for your organization, that's a great place to share the information. It's good on Facebook, but it's probably better on LinkedIn. It's a more professional site, so slang terms and a non-professional voice is not encouraged. So using like LOL on a LinkedIn post for laugh out loud is not encouraged. Or just saying laugh out loud or putting smiley faces is not encouraged on LinkedIn because it tends to be more business and professional like. And like I mentioned too, try new features when they're introduced, such as the LinkedIn stories, which rolled out, like I said, in the last month or so. and then include links to your posts as well. All right. How are we doing? Do we need a break at all, or do we want to keep going?
Keep going.
Keep going? Okay. Am I overloading anybody? Are there any questions? Okay. Well,
yeah, you're doing great, Nick. It's really, really informative.
Okay. No, let me get another swig of water here because that's a lot of talking. I think we're doing pretty decent on time. So, all right. So we'll keep going. And again, if you do have a question, by all means, if it comes to you, just go ahead and let me know. All right. Okay. So now we're going to move into Twitter. Very crowded platform. And I do mean very crowded platform. 330 million active monthly users. As you can see, shelf life, 15 minutes. Very short window to capture people's attention on Twitter. However, because of this, it is permissible to post more than once, even if it's the same one. So you can do the same post 2-3 times a day. There's a pretty good chance the people that didn't see it the first time will see it the second or third time. Average minutes spent per day on Twitter is 3 minutes. And average engagement is very low. And as you can see, 75% of Twitter users check the site daily for their news. If somebody, oops, wrong button there. Okay, sorry about that. All right, Twitter's strengths and weaknesses. Shares thought leadership. It's best for conversations. Like I said, it's probably the most in terms of back to forth communication. Events, breaking news. This is another area where if you have a new president for your organization, that's not a bad spot to post it. And trending topics. It's an area where you can use hashtags. And again, I'll go into hashtags a little bit as well. But you get a lot of trending topics. Like in 2016, I remember when Donald Trump came into West Bend was trending nationally just because of how often people were talking about West Bend. Weaknesses, as I mentioned, very crowded platform, very low engagement, not real good for advertising because it is such a loaded platform. Your rate of investment and your rate of return is just not real high if you advertise on Twitter. You can do it, but it's just not very effective more often than not. And like we mentioned, you have text limitations. You have 280 characters to basically say what you want to say. So what works well on Twitter? Hashtags. 1 to 2 per post is recommended, and usually not more than 3. Hashtags is a search engine tool related to a topic such as Black Friday or Throwback Thursday. So when I mentioned that when he was campaigning for president in 2016, Donald Trump and a lot of people used hashtag West Bend. That was how West Bend became trending on Twitter, was because of the hashtag usage from people and from news outlets that were covering Trump's appearance in West Bend in 2016. I only remember that because I was working at the paper at the time, and I remember looking at it. It's like, I was probably the first time West Bend has ever trended internationally on Twitter. Mention other users in posts, especially if you have one of those situations where if you're a nonprofit and a business gives you a donation, tag them on the post. Therefore, what they can do is then they can share it on their social media channels, which expands your options and your brand awareness. Use images to help stand out in the crowded platform. If it's just a text, people are just going to gloss right over. But if it has an eye-catching graphic or photo, you have a better chance of catching people's attention. And like I said, posting often is okay, and it is encouraged. All right, Instagram. 1 billion active users. The shelf life is about 24 hours. Average shelf life is about 15 minutes. But with the stories application, it can increase. And then average engagement is 1.6%. It's one of the best platforms for engagement because people love interacting with images and video. Instagram strengths and weaknesses. It's a chance to tell about your brand through visuals, whether that's video or images. By having the visuals, it creates more of a human element to your brand. Again, you want to create your brand as having a personality, something that people can connect with. And then because of that, it allows you to test your creativity. Weaknesses, you cannot post without visuals. Instagram, you cannot just put a plain text post. You have to have an image of some kind or a visual of some kind. This is something I've continually wished that Instagram would fix, but you cannot post direct links in posts. You can, but they're not clickable. So you can post a full link. Usually what's best is if you have a short website, like MCFI's is mcfi.net, you can put it there and people can remember that. But if you have like a long, complicated website name, or if you have a specific direct link for an event you're hosting, that's not going to be the best place to post about it. What I'll do is I'll post a graphic. If there's an event, I'll post a graphic. This is because with Instagram, you can put a website link on your profile. You can put in the post, check out our website for more information. This link is in our profile. That's one thing you can do on Instagram, just because you can't post a direct clickable link in Instagram. And the audience on Instagram skews towards millennials. So really, basically people 35, 30 and younger. So if you're trying to reach a baby boomer, odds are they're not going to be on Instagram. If you're trying to reach a 40, 45-year-old, not typically going to be on Instagram. Hashtags, hashtags, hashtags. These are a must on Instagram, more than it is on Twitter, because hashtags work as search engine tools on Instagram, and it's very hard for users to find your content without the hashtags. And because of that, Instagram allows you up to 30 hashtags per post. And they can be as simple, and what I'll do sometimes is I'll do healthy, hashtag living, hashtag healthy living. Try to think of topics that relate to your post and try to create a hashtag following that. Because there's millions of people on Instagram that will pump in a search, and using a hashtag on Instagram is the only way people will find your content. Use live video and stories. As you saw, YouTube is one area that's definitely seeing more and more interaction. Instagram is just kind of a follower, another avenue for live video and stories. People interact with video a lot more than they used to. And also utilize a program called Instagram TV or IGTV. What that allows you to do is, without using IGTV, you can post videos on Instagram, but I believe the limit is 1 minute. IGTV kind of almost works like YouTube on Instagram. You can post, I think it's an hour long video on Instagram using IGTV. What will appear on your social news feed for Instagram is it'll appear as a post. It'll play like the first 15 or 20 seconds of your video, and then it will ask you, would you like to continue watching? Go to IGTV, and people will click on that if they want to. So it's kind of works as a video teaser and then refers you to IGTV. I've used it, and I've actually found it very effective for what I do with both the Milwaukee Center for Independence and the West Bend Theater Company. Like for the West Bend Theater Company, for example, if I was doing an interview of a cast member for an upcoming show, I posted that on IGTV as just another way to reach users, while also posting it on Facebook and maybe even YouTube. So just using the different tools you have available to you can help broaden your brand awareness and reach different users based on the platforms that you use. So here's an example of hashtag effectiveness that I've used on Instagram. So I'm going to utilize Milwaukee Center for Independence here in this case. So from January to March 2020, I wasn't using a wide range of hashtags. It was just kind of what I was testing. And I'll get into kind of testing and experimenting here in a little bit. So as you can see, about January, I reached 1.46 users based on via hashtag 3.75. In February, March was 0.73. Don't have April and May because I was on the temporary layoff due to COVID. But in June, I decided to step up my hashtag usage, and you can immediately see the difference. So in June, I reached a 2.15 additional users than what I had in the past, then 4.6 in July, 5 in August, and up to 6.5 additional users in October. May not sound like a lot, but think of it this way. That's 6 additional users per post that saw a particular post, and if they're intrigued enough, they'll scroll through your other posts and see what you're more about. So if you just can get a couple extra people, that could mean a lot of good things for you and your brand in terms of how you're performing in terms of your brand engagement and reach. Lisa, I can partly see your question here. I mean, so yeah, I can't really see part of the question here, Lisa. So Lisa, if you can bring your audio up, can you just go ahead and ask your question? Or is that not?
I'm just wondering where you're finding this information on the Instagram, like app or platform or profile or whatever.
Let's see. I've used several different sources, Rival IQ, Spreadfast, HubSpot, and CopyPress.
Okay.
I have those sources listed on the slides that I've been. Does that answer your question?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So some changes that were made by Facebook and Facebook owned Instagram. Instagram and Facebook, as of November 3rd, will no longer permit location tagging on posts on Hootsuite. And Hootsuite is a third-party posting tool that allows you to schedule to multiple social media platforms at the same time. And I can get into that, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Where that's effective is when you can post your location tag, that kind of lets people know that you're a real business. Again, where people use social media to help research who you are as a business, that's certainly one viable tool. And it will show other posts from you if you use a location tag, say for Milwaukee Center for Independence. If you use that as a location tag, they'll show all the posts for that tag if they just click on your location. So that's a pretty major change in terms of how to reach people via social media. Over the next couple of months, there are going to be a couple other changes made to Instagram. Each Instagram account will be limited to publishing a maximum of 60 Instagram posts from Hootsuite or any other third-party publisher within a 30-day rolling period. To publish more than 60 posts, you can go to Instagram and directly publish it yourself. And then Instagram accounts linked to Facebook pages with large audiences may be asked to confirm their identity and secure their account before they can resume publishing via Hootsuite. This is just testing privacy and validating websites and social media profiles. And as you can see, Instagram is doing this to make sure the changes are to maintain safety and the integrity of the Instagram community. All right, Snapchat, 360 million active users. If your target market is young, Snapchat works very well. Most active users are, believe it or not, 13 years old and spend upwards of 30 minutes per day on the app. And I think I mentioned this before, it's almost taken the place of text messaging. And it thrives on user-generated content, behind the scenes, exclusive offers, and influencer takeovers. If you're a business that has kind of interesting behind the scenes stuff going on, like maybe like a gift wrapping of something, a gift wrapping event, you can run a Snapchat live or a Snapchat video. It says, hey, this is so-and-so from such and such organization. We're here to wrap Christmas gifts for the homeless. That would be an example of something you can use with Snapchat. For Pinterest, 322 million active monthly users. But the positive for Pinterest is its long shelf life. We're talking 7+ months on Pinterest, or pins or posts. In Pinterest, posts are called pins. Average time spent on the platform is 14 minutes per day. Average repins, which is Pinterest's name for sharing, is 11. And 67% of Pinterest users consult the mobile site while in-person shopping, such as fashion, food, decor, wedding, workouts, or even do it yourself. So if somebody, maybe like if they want to have a new recipe and they need to figure out what the ingredients are at the store, people will go to Pinterest and find maybe apple pie recipe. And that's how they can find out what they need for whatever it is that they're looking for. Some of the strengths of Pinterest is very event-focused content, a lot of infographics, and like I mentioned, long shelf life for posts. Weaknesses, niche audience and content type, very specific audience here, maybe more, even more specific than what we would see on LinkedIn. Heavily used more by women than men by quite a bit, and not a lot of frequent return visitors. So that's something to keep in mind. What works well on Pinterest? Well, using long vertical images. Showed you earlier about properly sizing images. Pinterest works better if you use more vertical images rather than horizontal images like you'd see in most other cases. The more you pin, the more better engagement you're going to have. And because of that, engagement determines the pin's shelf life. I mean, I know I'm actually still seeing posts I posted last year that are still getting attention on Pinterest. So I don't use Reddit all that much, just based on what I do, but I thought I'd throw it in there just to let you know what it is. As you see at the top, there's a source there and basically on how to use Reddit. But on the surface, Reddit, it has 430 million active users. It's dubbed the front page of the internet. According to Alexa rankings, Reddit is one of the top 20 most visited sites in the entire web. So certainly a growing platform. It has a unique blend of content and community, and there's a place for every brand and business. All right, this is going to be kind of some of the fun parts here. So what is TikTok? I'm sure we have heard that TikTok is in the news. Here's TikTok in a nutshell. It was launched in China in 2016 and it was launched worldwide in 2018. Extremely popular. As you can see, in just 4 years, collected more than 2 billion downloads and more than 90 million in the United States. And how it can be utilized in marketing is still being determined because it is still a relatively new platform, especially here in the United States. So if you have TikTok or know someone who has it, you do not see a lot of business advertising on TikTok because businesses haven't quite figured out its effectiveness yet. So it's a tool worth exploring, but as you can see further down, we may not get that opportunity. But it is exceedingly popular for teens, high schoolers, and college students. If you think of certain trends, if anybody remembers the eating the Tide Pods fad, does anybody remember that? Where teenagers were challenged to eat Tide Pods. That was started on TikTok. So a lot of like these goofy little trends stuff start on TikTok. As you can see, it's very popular among the teens and college students. This surprised me when I found this. Shockingly used more by men than women. Very video focused, and videos can last anywhere between 15 to 60 seconds. And here's kind of where it's been, its future's up in the air, at least here in the United States. It's being challenged by President Trump, and it's been in the courts to determine if the app can and should be banned in the United States. An article from NPR says 90% of TikTok users would quit the app if it goes dark for a proposed 6-month ban. But at the same time, as you can see how fast it's growing, TikTok usage has gone up 75% since March 2020, which is when COVID-19 was declared a pandemic. So TikTok is exceedingly popular and growing fast, but its future is uncertain. So that's just something definitely keep in mind. If they do wind up keeping TikTok here on US soil, it could be something that could be useful for you, especially if you're trying to reach that teenager and college age demographic. And here's one that's kind of come new over the last several weeks is what is Parler? Parler works very similar to Twitter. It was just launched in 2018, but has gone viral in the week since the election. Is described via the Apple Store as a non-biased, free speech social media focused on protecting users' rights. Facebook and Twitter announced as the election was going on that they would be very careful in terms of the messaging that would go out about the election. Parler does not want to do that. They want people basically to police themselves, which should be interesting because in a lot of cases, it can be a challenge for people to police themselves on social media. So that is something to keep in mind. Again, like TikTok, because of how new it is, how it's effective and what businesses and organizations can do to use it, it's still up in the air. So it looks like we're trying to speed it up here. These are tips and rules and guidelines are great, but all rules are meant to be broken. Experiment. Find out what works best for your organization. Now, I'm sharing with what's worked, what I've seen, and what works best for what I've done. By all means, is it not the solving method? I'm just kind of giving you basic tips and understanding of how to recognize how different things work on social media and then you use that information to try and see if you can adapt your strategies based on what your needs are as an organization. Because what, in my case, Milwaukee Center for Independence or West Bend Theater Company are looking for and what they're trying to accomplish is probably different from what you're trying to accomplish. So again, these are good baseline things to understand to help you understand the world of social media, but by all means, is it not the golden solution? Experiment and see what works best for you. And here's the general best practices and tips. Be mindful of grammar and spelling. That will capture a lot of people's attention. Shorten links when you can, especially if you have like a really complicated event link. There are free resources out there. Bitly is one of them where it will let you post your full link and it'll automatically shorten it for you. And you post it in your post and it'll act just like if it was a regular web link. Saves you character length, especially if you're in Twitter. So that's a good thing to have. Scheduling posts is a good idea, but setting up automated posts is not. Because of how often things change with social media, if something you schedule to be automated, posted every Wednesday may not be as effective a month or two down the line. Be consistent and use a casual voice. Again, social media is a conversational platform, not a website. Websites are more for technical writing, tell you more about maybe some products or services that you offer. Remember, users often go to social media before visiting website. Make them feel welcome. Make them want to come to your website. Introduce them. Again, creating a profile or personality for your Facebook page. And with your casual voice, like I said, make it engaging. Welcome conversation. Use humor. Definitely use humor when you've got the opportunity, because people will laugh at that and they'll recognize that you or your brand is interactable. And that's what people are looking for in social media, is to be the interaction. Lisa, I'm just catching your question now. Again, I can't quite see all of it. So Lisa, what is your question?
Are there any, does like Hootsuite, any of the third-party scheduling platforms have a free version for like a limited amount of scheduling? I know they did at one time.
Yeah, Hootsuite is the one I use because it is free. There are others out there, and I do have that out there. Sprout Social is another one, but you do have to pay, and it is a bit on the expensive side, but it does work real well because you got a lot of really good professionals there. But I have found Hootsuite to be very, very effective because you can really have not a lot of limitations outside of what Instagram is. And I have not had ever an issue of getting close to 60 posts. Now, to 60 posts, when you think about it, that's 2 a day on Instagram. Again, if that's kind of what you feel is what's best for your organization, that may or may not work. So otherwise, maybe looking at some of the other third-party platforms. And there's a number of them out there. I just can't think of some of the others out there. But Hootsuite is the one I have found to be very good and very effective for me too.
Nick, one other question as you're going over best practices.
Yeah.
I know Instagram gives you the option to, when you are posting something, to also post it on Facebook at the same time. Is that a good idea to do? And, are there limitations of when you should do it or shouldn't do it?
I typically don't, just because especially if you're using hashtags on Instagram, which is what's encouraged, hashtags have not been effective on Facebook. Mm-hmm. People really don't like seeing hashtags a whole lot on Facebook. It doesn't hurt, but it's really not typically recommended to put hashtags on Facebook. And if you share a post on Instagram to Facebook, that's what's going to happen. And again, keep in mind the demographics that are on Instagram compared to Facebook as well.
Right. I find that, I want to share the same information on both. So I would have to create 2 different posts of the same thing, just subtracting the hashtags. So I'm like, oh gosh, time-wise, this kills 2 birds with 1 stone, but I see what you're saying too.
Yeah. It's not like you can't. I'd say it's not discouraged, but that's just can't tend the way people react. Just Facebook hashtags on Facebook, again, just people just don't really pay much attention to them because that's just not what they're used to seeing on Facebook are hashtags. People do use them, but there's really
they don't go anywhere. You can't select a hashtag and then it's not going to take you,
It works the same. It still works the same way. I mean, it can work as a search engine on Facebook, but again, people just don't really pay attention to hashtags on Facebook as they do on Twitter and Instagram. So,
all right. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, if you do feel like you have a message on Instagram that you want to share to Facebook to help you kind of nurse 2 birds with 1 stone, you can do it. It's not discouraged, but you just want to be careful that you don't put 30 hashtags on a Facebook post because that's just not what people are using. And again, if Facebook's being skewing toward the older generation, they may not even know what a hashtag is.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, we're just making sure. All right. Whoops. All right, here we go. All right, so like I just said, tailor your post to the specific platform you're using to. So what you're posting on Facebook may not be as effective on LinkedIn or Instagram, just based on your audience. And every one of these social media platforms gives you, has insight platforms and options that can tell you who's on your site in terms of demographics of how old they are, what gender they are, where they live, and stuff like that. So that's something to keep in mind. Me, I focus on engagement, and that's the most important part is if and as we learn, well, algorithms drive engagement. So that's focus on engagement to me has always been the most important thing. Avoid lengthy and convoluted sentences. Stay away from business and industry lingo. People don't like to see that on social media. That's more technical. That stays on your website. And don't use acronyms either, unless they're well-known acronyms like NASA or stuff like that, or as ASAP. And even ASAP is, so I would avoid those things. Write like you're talking directly to them, not above them. I see that a lot where companies will talk like they're not connecting with their customers. Short and concise messaging works best. Entice users to click on your links. So say for more information, click here. Or for more information, visit our website here. Give them a call to action. Use pronouns. Provide value for the people who follow your platforms. Give them something that they want. And that's again goes back to social listening. And then be honest and transparent. Right. Bad but good advice. It sounds kind of counterintuitive, but there is no best time to post. That's all based on what you feel is what you've learned from your insights. There's no hard set. You got to post at 3 o'clock on Friday, and that's where you get the most engagement on Facebook. It differs from business to business, day to day, hour to hour. Nor is there a recommended number of posts per day. Experiment, see what works. It differs on each platform based on their shelf lives, as you saw, as well as what you do as an organization. If you do business in other time zones, be mindful of that. And don't base your small business strategy on that of large business. They have a larger following. They have a larger brand recognition typically. Do set up the strategy that you feel is best suited for what you offer. But one thing that can happen is posting too often can diminish engagement. So that's why you want to experiment. What works, what is good, what is too much, what is not enough for your followers. And again, don't focus on gathering followers. You've got 20,000 likes of your page. Great. But are they engaged? Remember, engagement influences algorithms, which is the base of how and when people see content on their newsfeed. I will rather take 40 people engaging out of 100 people if a post reached 100 people, I would take 40 people engaging with it. Because that's 40% of people that thought the content was useful and it got a reaction than if you got 1,000 reach and only 2% or 2 people engaged with it. That means it didn't capture enough attention. I know we're getting kind of close on time, so we got about, let's say, about 5 to 10 minutes here. If you do have to get going, I'm not going to hold it against you to log off if you have to get to what you have to do. So I'll try to speed it up here. I've got a couple more slides to work with, and then we'll be done. But if you do have to get going at 9:30, I appreciate everybody that dropped in. And again, these slides will be available afterward. All right. How do you measure success on Facebook or on social media? There are a lot of ways you can do that. But again, engagement is the most important thing to know, like clicks, likes, and shares. Here are some terms for you to know to help you understand how your posts are doing. Reach is the number of unique or single users that saw a post. So you have a reach of 100, that means 100 people saw your post. Impressions is the total number of views, which means can be more than once by a single user. So out of that 100, maybe you might get impressions of 150, which means you have some people that saw it more than once or did something with it more than once. You can have one person that saw it 5 times. That's what an impressions is. Reach is people, impressions is views. Engagement is the rate of which your posts garner reaction out of those reached. It's a like, a comment, or a share. Click-through rate is the rate of which a click to a link is generated from a post, such as a website link on your, or click on your post. So if you were to post of your website, it will show as a post click, and that's your click-through rate.
Nick, quick question. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
So if your reach is high, but your engagement is low, is that a bad sign?
To me, that would mean that what your post didn't capture a lot of people's attention.
Okay.
So you typically want the engagement to be higher. So like I said, if you got 100 people or 100 reach, if your reach was 100, that means you got 100 people, you reached 100 users that saw it just one time.
Mm-hmm.
And if 20 clicks or engagements were on there, that means 20% of the people that saw your post reacted to it in some shape, way, or form, as opposed to if just one, that's 1%.
Okay, thank you.
So here's how you can calculate those numbers. So reach is equals to the number of users reached and divided by the total followers of your page. Now you'll notice there's a spot in your insights where there's likes and followers. Followers is the difference between likes and followers is followers see your content, but they don't see all of your content. Likes means they see every post. Followers are people that have an interest, but not entirely interested. You haven't got them yet. So let's use this math here. So for the reach was 355 and the total followers of your page was 1,500. That means your reach was about 23.7%. What these kind of numbers mean, I believe that's on the next slide. Your click-through rate is the number of clicks divided by the number of users you reached. So 5 divided by 355 is 1.4%. And engagement is the total of clicks, likes, shares, comments, and reach. And so 17 total engagements for 355 reach is 4.8%. Okay, yep, it's the next slide. So here are some averages based on the industry, on research I've done over a number of different websites and seminars and webinars that I've attended. So if you have a 15%, so for Facebook, to me, 15% of your overall audience is typically a pretty decent goal. You want your click-through rate to be about 2 to 5% and 2% for engagement. So if you, again, think of 100 people who saw a post, if you can get 2 people to react, then that's typically average in the social media realm. It sounds really kind of sad and low, but that's just kind of the way it is. LinkedIn has the same thing, 15% or better for reach. The click-through rate tends to be you want to be a little higher, and 2% for engagement. Instagram, an engagement rate of 3.5% or greater is considered good. Retention on YouTube is about how much of your video people are watching. So is 50%, and click-through rate is 2 to 10%. So where click-through rate is measured on YouTube is if people saw your video in their YouTube timeline, did they click on the video? And for Twitter, 0.09 to 0.33% is considered high. As you can see, Twitter engagement is really low, but if you can get that number, that's usually considered pretty solid. All right, just a couple more slides to go. All right, and so in closing, social media is constantly changing, almost easily every day. So your strategy should change it too. The recommended is maybe every 6 months, take a look at what your social media strategy is. I'm actually due to do that myself. Review your strategy regularly. It doesn't hurt to kind of continue to look at it and see if it's fitting to what your business and marketing goals are. Follow some blogs and newsletters that monitor changes. A lot of the sources I got here and a lot of information I follow is on Social Media Examiner and Social Media Today. Those are great news resources that help you understand maybe upcoming changes, such as if Facebook plans to roll out a new feature, Social Media Examiner or Social Media Today will have like a story on it. So those are good news resources to help you with industry news and industry things that might be coming up down the line as far as the industry. Third-party scheduling platforms work great to help with scheduling and keeping your posting calendar in order. Hootsuite, like I mentioned, is free. Here are a few others: Sprout Social, Buffer, and Rival IQ are others. I've got some familiar with the others. They're pretty good, but you do have to pay for those services. Hootsuite is free, but as you saw earlier, there are some limitations coming on online for Hootsuite. All right, so final takeaways. Social media can be your best friend if you know how to use it. Be engaging, be conversational. Remember, it's social. Talk with people. That's what they're on social media to do. If you have a complaint that is posted on your page, you need to address it as soon as possible. Again, people want a response within 24 hours, whether this is through a message or even just a flat out comment on your page. If it is a comment on your page and it's someone who's voicing maybe a complaint over a product or something that happened, it is best to pull them off of social media and into private messaging or encourage a phone call. You do not want to get into a war of words with somebody on social media. It'll make you look worse than the person raising the concern. So do whatever you can to get the person offline and discuss it, whether through private messaging or a phone call. If they refuse to do it, you just kind of have to bite the bullet and just let them do what they're going to do. Because as I'm sure people have heard the phrase of trolls. There are people out there who just like to go on and set negative vibes and talk badly about people because there's just a lack of accountability when interacting on social media. So, and be careful when, excuse me, when posting about sensitive issues. Don't just do it because everyone else is doing it, such as Black Lives Matter, for example. There were a lot of organizations that felt like they had to say something, but it was not within their demographic or their audience to say something. If you have to address a sensitive issue, really see if you really have to take it case by case. Because again, you have to be transparent and be honest. And if you're just saying something just because everybody else is, people are going to read right through it and see that you are not being transparent. So you do have to take those kinds of issues and situations very carefully. And try not to post the same platform on all your same message on all your platforms. Again, tailor it to the specific platform based on the demographics you're trying to reach. So again, what you post on Facebook may not, the way you word it on Facebook may be a little different on LinkedIn, just because of the people that you're working with and who the people that you follow or that follows you. And again, be social. If you'd like to contact me, if you have other questions, please do not hesitate to do so. Again, there's my contact information. And again, I'll have this out in a PowerPoint later on, hopefully today, but you'll certainly get it at some point. Feel free to reach out to me if you have questions or things of that nature. And I thank you for your time. So does anybody have any questions? And in just a couple minutes over, Lisa.
Oh, I'm okay with it as long as people are still on.
So is there anybody have any questions, comments, jokes that they want to share?
I have a question.
Right, and I can't see who's
Lisa Johnson.
Okay, go ahead.
So when you are starting up an account or a platform, let's say it's Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is you're doing, how do you build your audience? What's the best way? Do you start liking people or businesses you know in hopes that they like you back? Do you, what's the...
Yeah, essentially the best way to do that is, for one, if you're creating a Facebook page, invite all your friends and family to like it. At
Okay.
least get something started, and then just kind of eavesdrop on other places. Like I said, join groups, the Facebook groups. So there's millions of them out there. If you type in a search in Facebook, if you have a specific audience that you want to, that you're trying to reach with your new Facebook page, join different groups, whether it's your business Facebook page or even your own personal page, and says, hey, I work for this organization. I work for Milwaukee Center for Independence. We do this. Here's a little bit about what we are and what we do. And just kind of keep that lines of communication open. It's going to take a little time for people to kind of recognize what you're doing, and for them to decide what you, if they want to follow you or like you and continue to support or follow what you're doing. So just kind of keep an open lines of communication. Like I said, be social, because that's just the best way to reach people, and that's the way people want to be reached, believe it or not.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Any other questions? Comments, feedback, quips, jokes? All right. Well, like I said, I really appreciate everybody taking their time out this morning to hear what I have to say about and what I've learned. And hopefully you came away with a lot of good information that you can start using in your social media and digital media marketing strategies. Like I said, these are just a lot of the basic things that I've seen and learned, and that I've found to be very useful. But again, you have to understand, experiment and see what works best for your organization. But at least knowing how social media works and what the different platforms there are out there, and can really help you understand better what you're trying to accomplish, and understand who you're trying to reach. And it really can take your organization or your company to a different level, especially now that we're so much more isolated than what we used to. Social media is definitely going to be very, very important. And as you see, Facebook is not just the one-all solution. There are different options out there for you. So experiment and see what works for you. And like I said, I'm available for questions and answers through private contacts later on. And really, again, thank you so much for your time. I enjoyed it. Again, hopefully everybody got something, and we'll do a little plug. And I think a lot of you are signed up for the Google Analytics one here in a couple weeks. That will be very useful, where you can really understand, okay, people found you on social media and they went to your website. Now what do they do? Now what are they doing on your website? So this really connects very well to basically understand how people are finding you on the very, very, very crowded platform that is the internet. So thank you again, everybody. And again, look for your email. Check your emails later on, and I'll get the PowerPoint and other things out to you later. So thanks again, and everybody, for having me, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Nick.
Thank you.